Hey everybody, I'm Scott. I'm program manager with Independent Living. Welcome back to Soar to Recovery's podcast, Stigma Busters. This week we're going to be talking about what is peer support and the pathway on becoming a recovery coach, and then the different titles different agencies use in conjunction with the competencies of the certified recovery peer advocate credential from Oasis, and different other subcategories on what a peer is. Today I'm joined by Crystal, Debbie, Daniel, and Deshawn. And just to let everyone know, again, this is a free space that we may share our own individual lived experience with everybody. So this is not a set in stone description. This is just our experience based upon what we've lived and where we work as a recovery coach. Crystal, you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi, everybody. I am Crystal. I am one of the recovery coaches for MHA of Dutchess County, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Debbie?
Hi, I'm Debbie. I work for Independent Living, the Soar to Recovery program, and I am a team leader for the peers in Dutchess County for our program, and I am happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. Daniel?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Daniel Curtin. I'm a recovery coach with MHA of Dutchess County. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here, Daniel. Deshawn?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Deshawn. I am the peer specialist for an Independent Living SOAR 2 project. I work not solely, out of Sullivan County. Happy to be back.
Thanks for coming back, Deshawn. So let's talk about what is peer support and what that means for people that are searching for recovery or creating their own pathway, as we talked before. Deshawn said he's a peer specialist, and Crystal and Daniel said they're recovery coaches, and some people say they're peer advocates, or some people just say, oh, I'm a peer with MHA, or I'm a peer with Independent Living, or I'm a peer with this agency and this agency. And it really comes down to what the agency wants to label the job description and the position. But as we discuss, we all have the same credentials. We're all certified recovery peer advocates. That's literally what's on our credential from Oasis. So moving through this podcast, we're going to use the term recovery coach to make sure that we're in line with the competencies from SAMHSA. And Crystal, what's a little bit about your experience with a peer or a peer coach or an advocate or a peer specialist?
I think my experience as far as peer support goes, it's really meeting individuals where they're at. And, recovery is about the process of change. So meeting people in the beginning where they're at and really getting to know them, and person-centered, really catering to what they need individually, because every single person is different. So it's really a little bit of different things with every single person that we work with.
There's that term again, like the last podcast, is person-centered. I think that's crucial to just continue to hit home and let everybody know that it's truly centered on the individual and on you and what you want the outcome or the process or the pathway to look like. How about you, Deshawn? What's your experience with peer support?
Pretty much the same. Like she said, person-centered is how it's supposed to be. No decision about me without me. Each person that we work with should be able to basically make decisions about their own health and their own treatment and their own everything, because it's their treatment and their health. It's not ours. We're just here to help them, think about different decisions and like what it may entail before making that decision. But the decision is ultimately theirs, and it's our job to support them.
That's good. We're, and that reminds me is I remember playing high school sports and some collegiate sports, and we had coaches, right? And they told us exactly what we had to do. You have to run the play this way, go in, come off the field, or, wear the uniform this way, or you have to arrive on this time at this time, or there'll be disciplinary actions. And, as recovery coaches, we take a kind of a backseat from that authoritative coaching mentality and coach you and uplift you and give you direction on the tools that you can try to assist you in recovery. Daniel, what's your experience working as a professional?
I mean, one of the biggest things is doing with our individuals. We don't do for, we don't tell you what to do. We do things with you, asking, well, what have you tried? What hasn't worked? What have you maybe not considered? Just throwing out some ideas just from like knowing other agencies in the community and building those resources that we all have, and just kind of sitting down and ask them, hey, I know this is different treatment, but what do you want? What do you want to see? And that goes back to person-centered again.
It all comes back to the center, right? That's great. And how has anyone seen, or have you seen the stigma placed on either yourself, coworkers, or others that identify as someone in recovery or a peer, but not necessarily as a professional? I hear this. Oh, you're just a peer. Crystal's.
You're just a recovery coach. Like you can't do X, Y, and Z because you're just a recovery coach, because we're not at all clinical staff. So they think that there's like a hierarchy, and it's not better or worse. We're just different. We have a different role. We have a connecting role where we connect the dots between, like treatment centers and clinicians and all of the things that kind of float about. We connect all those pieces together. And so our role is very important. I just think that there's not enough clarification because of all of the AKAs, the peer specialists and the advocate and the peers and the yada yada. So it gets a little fuzzy around our role, but I think doing things such as we're doing right now will hopefully start to build some clarity for everyone.
Deshaun?
Glad she brought up the term hierarchy. Because I myself have experienced that whole thing where it's like they feel as though a peer is at the lowest of the professional totem pole for some strange reason, whereas Crystal said we are the bridge between the individual and the rest of the staff. We are the bridge. We are the connection. We are the ones that they'll most likely tell things that they won't tell the other clinical or medical or any staff, but yet we're still treated in this social hierarchy or this professional hierarchy as lower on the totem pole. And it's like, why are we treated as though, oh, you're just a peer? Yeah, you just go there and talk to them. And like I said, I've experienced that to where it's just like they thought a peer specialist and a housing specialist did the same thing. And it was just like, why would you think that? Why would you? Do you not know what a peer does? Should I not educate you on what we do? Should you not learn what a peer does before you actually speak on what a peer does? Is this not one of these things that we do? Or is it you feel that because you're in a different position than me, that you feel you're higher, that I'm lower than you, so it doesn't matter? I've been there.
For those of you that are listening audibly and don't have the visual, we are all celebrating quietly without screaming out loud on Zoom. Deshaun and Crystal hit on huge parts, and it's really comes down to the principles and the values of recovery support. being recovery oriented, being person centered, being voluntary. You can opt out of peer support. You can opt out of recovery support. There's no mandate to obtain or utilize peer services. And then it's relationship focused. And what I mean by relationship focused, it's between the peer worker or the recovery coach and the peer on the supports and services that are provided. The relationship between the peer worker and the peer is respect, trusting, empathetic, collaborative, and mutual. Right? And we have actually a recovery agreement where this is what you can expect from me, and this is what I can expect from you. And so now we both know and are on the same exact level, at the exact same table, at the exact same time in every conversation that we have. And the last one being, I find the most, I don't know if it's the most, they're all important, but the value that I'm thinking about is being trauma informed. We've all been through trauma, whether you're a recovery coach, you're a parent, you're a sibling, you're a neighbor, you're a teacher, you're a therapist. Everybody in the world has experienced trauma at one point in their life, and allowing a recovery coach that has been trained on how to collaborate and educate and support someone that is working through the hurts, hang-ups of a trauma is crucial and paramount. And, as of like the last 2 years, I would say recovery coaches have really found themselves being embedded in a clinical setting. But because of the competencies and, podcasts like this and recovery coaches like all of us, we've stood up for our credential and say, you know what, I'm not a transporter. I'm not a clinician. I'm not a provider. I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to do drug screens, right? All the things that we are not. And so that leads me to that question for Daniel. What aren't we?
We're a lot of not things, I guess you could say. We're not a friend, we're not a sponsor, we're not a clinician. We're here to build that relationship with you, to encourage you and to support you. And like you were saying about the trauma informed care, I've noticed that peer work tends to be more progressive on that, because I've seen, going through treatment myself, and just things I've seen with my individuals, is like therapists and people that hold high degrees that are not, treating these individuals like with a trauma informed therapy. And it's very odd, but at the same time, like we are here to use our lived experience to support you and to walk with you on this journey.
Walk with. That's it. Not walk behind, not walk in front, side by side, hand by hand, through this thing that someone called life. Debbie, how about you?
Yeah, I was just going to add to something that Daniel said, is that at the end of the day, like, we are just people who have been through similar situations or something that at least they can relate to. And I think that at the end of the day, like, regardless of what we are or we are not, the best way to define it is someone who has lived experience with any kind of recovery level, any kind of like traumatic situation or mental health concerns, any kind of disability concerns. Like, that is what a peer is somebody who has a lived experience in a situation that is similar to what the individual is going through. Not at all any of the clinical stuff or anything at all, is just someone who understands and has additional training to assist and support.
Thanks.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, go ahead, Crystal.
Great points by everyone. I just also want to say that what we do is also, we don't tell our clients what we expect them to do. Like, I think you should do this. We use them as the resource, and it's more about what they think, because, we're just there to guide them and hold their hand. And through life, we fall and make mistakes. And through falling and making mistakes is how we learn. So we also have to let our clients make mistakes because of the choices that they make. And it's not about the mistake, it's about learning through the mistake and getting to the other side of it. Because each time that happens, they're growing within themselves, and we get to be there to support and encourage through it. So it's not about like whatever worked for me on my journey, me pressing that onto someone and thinking that they're going to do what I did because it worked for me. It's really using them as the resource.
It's not a loss, it's a lesson. Like you said, you make the mistake. What did you learn from it? What did you learn? You learned what not to do. All right, so let's try something different.
Yeah, and that all of those statements kind of fall under the competency of we're supporting the planning of your recovery, right? You're coming up with the plan and I'm just supporting you based on decision-making strategies, how to function as, or we can function as a member of your support team or your care team. Some agencies say we can sit in these collaborations and make sure that you have voices and that your plan is being executed the way that you see it. Go ahead, Deshawn.
Just to add to that, don't get us wrong. As much as we want you to plan your own thing, we as supporters of you will give you the pros and cons of what your possible decisions, like what it might turn out to be. We want to support you in any and every decision you make, but we do have to give you what the outcome may be and what you might be facing, what risk you might be taking, and so on and so forth. So that way you can make an informed decision based off of that, so that you're not just going in thinking this is going to work. And I'm not saying you can't, you got to be realistic, because in a way, there's no such thing as being realistic with what your goals are. But just know that there are pros and cons. You have to weigh the risk and everything else that comes with it before you make whatever decision you want to make.
Daniel?
And to add on to that, it's using our lived experience and using what we've learned professionally to say, hey, I suggest you might want to look at it this way, because I can say for me, it didn't work. And for what I've seen, it hasn't worked. I will support you if you still choose to decide that, but we'll be doing disservice to you by not at least trying to open your eyes and just bring up some things like, hey, it's great, but maybe we should revisit this little area,
So that being said, thought for the group, what if a peer or someone that we're working with comes to us with X, Y, and Z needs, and they haven't been connected to the community or linked to the community or linked to those services? How do we support the individuals we serve in getting connected to the community? Debbie?
Well, I would say first thing, in the legal side, I would definitely confirm that you have any kind of consent forms or anything like that, so that you have written authorization from the person to divulge their information to whatever agency or organization you are connecting them to. And then I would just say, sit down with the person and ask them specifically like what their needs are. And then once you have identified what those are, you can proceed with connecting them with organizations that you have, either what Daniel was saying before, experienced yourself, or in your professional career and job, you have identified with other folks what works and doesn't work. So then that way you can connect the person with the appropriate resources that will allow them to either get closer to their goals or achieve them altogether. And it's just a matter of getting connected to the organizations that are in the area, in your community, state, county, whatever situation it is, because there are resources out there, and that's part of the work that we do, is to, like we have said before, become the bridge between the resource, organization, whatever kind of thing it is, and just being able to connect the person like, hey, I hear you're saying that you need this kind of support. I have a place that can help. Is that okay for me to connect you with them? And we talk about, and specifically in the program that I work with, we talk about, do you need to do that on your own? Would you like to do a conference call? Would you like me to attend with you? And you can offer them the options, and then that way they can make an informed decision of what would be best for them. And the other thing is that after they make this decision, and if they find, this time I did it by myself and I feel like it would be best if you were there with me, then that way you can assist with them, and it's like almost like a debrief, and like speak to them about, okay, what was your experience like? Do you need any extra support? Did you do well? Like, what things do you feel like you can bring with you from this situation and continue like applying them to your journey?
Yeah, so I had a list under the competency of being a resource navigator, but Debbie literally just talked about it step by step in entirety. So I think that encompasses, the ability of recovery coaches to navigate the system of care. You have this need, we have this resource. How would you like to be connected, and how would you like to engage with that resource? And then, we can participate and even go with you, right? Coming out of COVID, we can go with you, right? Depending on the agency and the recovery coach's job description. And of course, like Debbie mentioned, HIPAA compliant releases, we can go with you to a doctor's appointment when all this medical jargon's being thrown at you, to help you process, digest, and respond to the language that either you or us may not understand, but you can still receive the services and the care that you deserve. Anybody else have any? Go ahead, Crystal.
I just wanted to add on to that. This goes back to building relationships, right? Like, if you're going to doctor's appointments with someone, that means that they're giving you trust. And I know for myself, as someone in recovery, trust is earned, right? Like, we don't just walk into meeting our clients and they trust us day one. So if we're going to these things, it's very important that we start to build those relationships. And that's really what recovery coaching is about. It's about the relationship, because we meet people when they're in treatment, but we keep those relationships as they're coming out of treatment and reintegrating into life. And I have people, that I've been working with for a couple of years now, and they're home. But when they have things that come up for them, they know that I'm only a call or a text away, because we now have that relationship that they can just pick up the phone and call me. And that's the difference between a recovery coach and a clinician. You're not going to get that from your case manager. That's just not their role. But fortunately for us, that is the role that we get to play in building relationships with people. And it's very powerful. It's very powerful.
Life-changing.
Life-changing.
Life-changing. Debbie, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to add that I think that another really big difference between the fact that you're able to build rapport with a peer compared to a clinician is the fact that peers self-disclose. We have the ability to say, it seems like in this specific situation, this individual might benefit from me sharing this specific detail about my life. You don't have to share everything that you've ever been through, just anything that is relevant so that the person can connect with you. And having that ability to say, oh, I understand, I went through something similar, without even going into details, the person can say, this is a person that sees me as a person because they have been through something similar that I have been through, where you will never get a clinician saying, girl, me too. That is not the case, because clinicians are actually discouraged from disclosing, where in the peer realm, that's actually what makes you more valuable, because the people are able to connect with you in a different way than they are able to connect with people that they just see once a month. Because in addition to the fact that the frequency is different, the kind of quality of that connection that you build with a clinician is completely different than with a peer, I will say.
Yeah, beautifully said. And again, you guys are just driving this conversation, and I love it. And thank you for all the feedback. And again, you've driven it to the next point, or the next competencies you want. Is we've used a lot of the word recovery, but for me, without health and wellness, recovery is only a part, right? We've seen so often societies being impacted physically, mentally, and spiritually. So what is your experience with like the 8 dimensions of wellness and creating RAP plans or health and wellness goals? Deshaun.
I find that going based off the eight dimensions and RAP plans that we do with our individuals, a lot of a lot of the individuals I work with feel as though they don't have a safe place, as well as it's their environment that they feel is affecting them more, affecting their decisions, affecting what they do, how they do it, their moods, their anything else that comes with it. Another thing I see is not having access to things that they need, not like medication or anything, but more like financially, finance wise, not having access to that, not having a job to get the basic necessities that they need. So they'll stress out. And, with stress comes certain situations that, you may want to avoid, but because you want to stop that stress, you want to stop that stress in your body and in your mind, you partake in certain behaviors, unfortunately. But a lot of times I try to work with them to see, all right, how can we change your environment? How can we work on changing your environment? How can we work on getting you finances so you can get the basic necessities that you need? How can we work on identifying your triggers, identifying what makes you feel this way, identifying when you're not well, identifying when you are well, yeah.
I'm just gonna put up the 8 dimensions of wellness wheel from the description of SAMHSA, and then I'm gonna let Debbie jump in and give her feedback. Go ahead, Debbie.
Something that we experience a lot, at least in the program that I work with, is that we assist people in defining what is their health and what is their wellness and what does that look like and what kind of goals do they want to work towards. And we do so by assisting them to create a small goal so that they can continue working towards that. So for example, when Deshaun before was talking about finances, like would it help to apply for government benefits? If we have someone who doesn't have access to, say, for example, a nutritionist diet or something like nutritional diet, and then that will impact the recovery, like because certain things, a lot of the things actually that we mentioned in this wellness situation that we have going on with the 8 dimensions of wellness is that at the end of the day, if you're not healthy in one aspect, it impacts your recovery in one way or the other. So if you have a lack of spiritual wellness, whatever that looks like for you, it doesn't have to be like a religious path or anything like that. Just a connection with higher power, whatever that looks like for you. If you're missing that, that could definitely impact your recovery. If you're missing your physical wellness and you need to go to get a physical or something like that, that it could impact your recovery. A lot of subcategories of what wellness and health is are pathways towards recovery. Once you're working towards your health and once you're working towards your wellness, recovery will come.
Mm-hmm. I think it's important, Debbie, to add on to that is that even though there's 8 dimensions and you can take this assessment with a recovery coach and identify the strengths and the barriers, you can pick one dimension and work on one dimension at a time, even if you may have 3 that aren't in the same scale or the same level of need. That may be overwhelming for you. Again, these are things that the recovery coach and peer support is going to help you identify. Okay, what do you see as more beneficial or more impactful and even more important or present to work on right now. And that's what we call SMART goals, being specific, measurable, attainable, reachable, and timely. And then you could have a 6-month physical goal, but you have a 3-month financial goal, but you have a 1-month occupational goal, right? So you can take all the 8 dimensions and spread them out across time. And like Debbie said, that becomes your pathway. Your pathway can be 6 months. Your pathway can be 1 year, right? Of course, the end goal is to live the rest of our lives happy, filled with joy, and have a purpose. But that really starts with having a goal starting right now during this conversation, the next 24 hours, the next week, and the next month, and so forth. Go ahead, Daniel.
Like, as important as having goals set are, like meeting that goal, it feels great. But if they don't meet that goal, there's a lot to learn there still. It doesn't mean they did anything wrong. Time takes time. So it's a huge learning opportunity. Like, well, I wanted to fix my license in a month. It's like, all right, well, you know what? Maybe it took 6 months. Maybe you got it done in a week. So it's like you learn to gauge and be forgiving to yourself. Because I know for me, it took me a long time to learn forgiveness, not only to others, but for myself.
Perfect, Daniel. Thank you. Crystal, what's your experience on offering peer support during a crisis?
My experience, I worked at an inpatient women's treatment facility during COVID, and we had multiple COVID outbreaks, simultaneously back to back. And those are the instances that certain staff members don't like to come to work for fear of COVID, whatever the case may be. And I am one of those people who step up to the plate during those moments. And I don't like people to feel isolated or abandoned. And, there was a lot of times that girls were in isolation because they tested positive. And I was like sitting outside of bedroom doors, going through recovery work and reading packets and, just having conversations with people so that they weren't feeling completely alone. And I think just maintaining connection with people on a daily basis so that they feel supported, really feeling supported constantly, whether it was coloring together or eating a meal together and sitting on the opposite sides of a door with a mask on and just having a conversation. I think it's really important to not leave people to their own. It's tough going through those moments. And I know for myself, abandonment is a big issue for me, and feeling rejected or, not wanted or, whatever place that takes us to, it's not a good place to be. So I feel it's detrimental to be there for people in times like that.
Yeah, it takes time to come out of a crisis and to support someone during a crisis. And I think the best tool that peer support has to offer individuals is crisis prevention. There's nothing better than having a crisis prevention. You do it, you create it, put it away in the filing cabinet. You may not need it for a year. You may not need it for 3 years. You may not even need it after you stop engaging in recovery support, but you have it. So then when a crisis comes up, you can pull it off, pull it out of the cabinet, dust it off, and there you go. Now you have the tools that you've developed to help you manage through that crisis. And again, like Crystal said, I in my life have not seen any crisis as large as COVID impact the recovery field. Isolation, depression, increased substance use disorders, overdoses, deaths, loss of employment, loss of all of it, right? That crisis is still lingering in our communities. And so creating a prevention and the tools and the knowledge and accessing resources and treatment is crucial to overcome crisis. Daniel, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, and also what defines crisis? Like who to what a crisis is to me, I can crash my car and be like, okay, I'm all right, it's fine, but I can't find my keys in the morning and I'm freaking out because I'm going to be late for work, this and that. And it's like, so what defines a crisis to the individual, and how do they learn how to identify what is a crisis? Because losing your wallet could be like a crisis, you know?
Right.
There's a lot that could define what a crisis is.
That's perfect, Daniel. Again, going full circle and ending up in the middle, it's person-centered. It really is. For me, not having coffee, it may be a crisis, right? The woodchuck digging a hole in my garden may be a crisis. I don't know, but no one else may think those are big things, and those are little things. Those aren't necessarily a crisis, but I'm just using those as examples because they may be small to somebody, but may be big crisis to somebody else. I think Deshaun has his hand up.
Another thing to add to what Daniel said is figuring out the warning signs before the crisis happens. Sometimes a crisis that can happen, and there's no stopping it from happening, but there are a lot of times there are warning signs before it starts that we as the recovery coaches and the individuals themselves, this is why we work on FRAP plans and crisis interventions and things like that, pre-crisis paperwork, because we want to know when these things are about to happen, so we could step in if necessary, or we can help you identify, hey, listen, this is where it's going. I'm just letting you know now. We have helping individuals identify when it's about to happen so that they can make a different decision than what they planned on making, or whether they can seek the proper help when they can't make that decision, like, hey, listen, I feel this coming on, so I'm just trying to stop it now before it happens. So that's important too, trying to stop the crisis or prevent it from happening before it comes to fruition. And then we would hope that we would not have to implement that crisis intervention plan if we don't have to, but we hope that we never have to use it, but if we do, so be it. We have this plan, but it's also great to have a plan pre-crisis.
Go ahead, Debbie.
I think similarly, just to go off from what Deshaun was just saying, it's important to discuss after the crisis. Like, what did you learn from this? Like, if you didn't know your triggers before, you do know them now. And I think that it's just so important to assist the person to create a level of self-awareness. So then that way, if in the future it ever arises again, the person is able to handle it, and they will not depend on the peer, they will not depend on the clinician, they will not depend on anyone else but themselves, because in that way they will have the knowledge and the power to say, I remember this happened last time, I did this and it didn't work, let me do something else. Or I did this and it works really great, let me try to do that again and see if that works this time. And that ability to have the person genuinely learn from the experience, even if you need to coach them through it and say, like, okay, like, what happened with this? Like, do you consider this was a trigger? Like, was it an isolated situation and stuff like that? And allowing the person to learn from their own experience and assisting them in the process of applying it for the future or in their own lives and things like that. I think it's such a really powerful tool that peers are able to give a person. And we talked about before, like, how like peer services are life-changing. Like, they're life-changing for the individuals that receive the services, but they're also really life-changing for us who assist people in doing so, because once we are able to assist people to do these things that we were talking about this entire time, like, for example, identifying triggers, they're like learning from an experience once to have a crisis, it's really helpful information for us too. So you're assisting someone to grow and you're growing yourself too. So it's almost like a win-win kind of situation.
Thank you so much, Debbie. And I think we all just got on fire for that. So I appreciate you giving everybody that knowledge. And it made me think to myself, Crystal, how do I get peer support? Like, I want peer support. How do I engage in the tools and the access to resources, and become person-centered and have a recovery coach on my side? What's the best way for someone to get connected to MHA of Dutchess County?
For our individuals, we work with a lot of the community residences in Dutchess County. So they usually get referred to us through their case managers at the houses. We always go there and introduce ourselves. We have like a sheet posted on the bulletin with our names and phone numbers that they have access to 24 hours a day. It literally has our work cell phone number, so they can text or call us anytime to set up an appointment. It's really pretty simple to get in touch with us. It's just a matter or not if they're willing to utilize our services. But again, it's clarifying our role.
Awesome. Thanks for that. And of course, Soar to Recovery, you can find us at SOR2 Project on Facebook. And of course, if you're listening to this, you probably found it through YouTube or YouTube channels, #Stigma Busters. I just want to thank all of the recovery coaches for being here today. And I know that we had another subtopic that we wanted to talk about, but we're going to move it into one of our upcoming podcasts. We're going to talk about the career path of a recovery coach and how to get engaged in working with people that are looking for recovery, and how to change the lives of the individuals in our communities, and how beneficial it could be for your life. And not even if it's not a career path, but how even to join grassroots advocacy, how to advocate in your local community, in your local county, and even up to your state level. There's bills and there's walks and there's all different types of ways you can get connected. Even if you're a family member of someone that's living with a substance use disorder, or you just see how it's so detrimental in your community that you want to be a voice for change and you want to become an advocate, there's a lot of different grassroots advocacy organizations. The biggest one, of course, being for New York, which is Friends of Recovery New York. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, or their website. I know Crystal and myself are pretty engaged in For New York, and so is Debbie they're both in Dutchess County. But again, this space is really truly just to let people know, the difference that one conversation with a recovery coach can have, and the impact that it could have on not just you, but everyone around you. And so, any last thoughts before we close? No? So we'll go around the room, and today, last podcast, the intention was gratitude, being grateful for this moment, being grateful for this day, being grateful for the opportunity to listen and share our emotions, our frustrations, our fears, and our desires with one another. And today the intention is love. With everything, love is encompassing. It's encompassing in recovery support. It's encompassing in treatment. It's encompassing in prevention. It's encompassing all of the emotions that we may have overcome, the ones that we're embracing right now, and then even the emotions that are to come. That love really can take a hold of those things and help you overcome and understand and come up with a crisis prevention. So when those emotions come back up, you don't have to resort to negative behavior. So my name's Scott, and I ferociously love myself on purpose today. Crystal?
My name is Crystal, and I love myself on purpose today.
Debbie?
My name is Deb, and I love myself on purpose today. And I try to every single day too.
Yeah. Daniel?
My name is Daniel, and I love myself today.
Deshawn?
My name is Deshawn, and I try my hardest to love myself on purpose every day.
Awesome. And we'll give everybody out there listening, thank you again for joining us. And the next podcast will be recovery housing, and what recovery housing is, what it offers, and how you can access recovery housing in your community. And on 3, everyone has the opportunity to promote and to ignite the fire and the intention of love inside yourself. 1, 2, 3. I love myself on purpose today.
Self on purpose.
I love myself on purpose.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you next time. Have a blessed day.